I hope this isn't accidentally public.
What?
Can't check that now. Oh, it's private. Okay, we're good. And we're
Okay,
live.
Hey guys. Welcome back to another episode of Talking with Andrew and Chris. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Chris. And in the spirit of Ringo Starr, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, I offer you the peace symbol.
Peace.
How's everyone doing? Andrew, how have you been?
Up? I've been pretty good. Been chilling, been working, been talking. Yeah. You know, we just talked about, I've been talking to my roommates a lot since they've been working from home. I've been talking to you and Dom about Avatar very recently. That was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah, true. And we're going to do a Legend of Korra episode as well. I'm actually going to start watching that tonight. Obviously, that's not the day you guys are hearing this. Right. But I want to always have a little bit of mystery to this show, so I'll let them think like, whoa, like was that the Saturday, the Sunday? When did they record this? How pertinent is this information I'm about to...
Days of the week are just a thing of the past now anyway, so who knows when this is happening.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of live and die by that sword, because my schedule at my job is very set, and then the schedule that I do sort of the podcasting / music is also very set, and it is planned specifically to each day of the week. But I understand what you mean. Maybe I'm not the majority in this situation, and I'm okay with that.
Right. But that's okay. I mean, I also, throughout this entire ordeal, never became unemployed, so everything, really nothing changed for me, I guess, for the most part, other than my roommates being home all the time.
Yeah, I guess I actually became employed because I work a seasonal job throughout this whole thing. So kind of thankful, definitely thankful for that, but not to steer anywhere near the direction of real world issues that are pertinent and, very pressing right now, because that could, dude, I've been a student lately, and that's all I'll say. I've just been studying and trying to make the most informed decision that I can for the world in the way that I want to fix it in November, and that's all I'll say, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's all you can do in times like these, so, But today, listen, I know you said you didn't want people to know, like, when we're recording this, but I feel like I'm about to give it away just by our discussion and why we're talking about it.
It's fine. Give it away, give it away, give it away now!
Nice. So basically, today is not when you're listening to it, but when we're recording it is July 23rd, aka the day that One Direction was like, remember 10 years ago when One Direction showed up and everybody on Earth was like, yes, how can we forget? That sparked a discussion that I figured would be a cool discussion for us to be on here.
Just experimenting with the mod features. Keep going, Andrew. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing some good visual bits.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that much.
I was not ready for that. Anyway, what I figured would be a cool discussion, being that One Direction is arguably the biggest boy band of all time, is what makes a boy band, and like what's the definition of a boy band? Because obviously, excuse me, there's obvious ones like One Direction and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. They're just like five guys on stage dancing and singing in unison and stuff. But I think that it's more than that, and I think that there are plenty of boy bands that, aren't the choreography and flashy outfits type that are still boy bands anyway.
No, I feel that. So let me get this straight. That's like all you want to talk about today?
Exclusively. If you say anything that isn't related to boy bands, I'm hanging up. I'm leaving.
Okay. Let's do it, I guess. Since this was your topic, we'll pose the question to the audience, and I guess to you, Andrew. Let's start off with, what is the definition of a boy band, or your definition of a boy band, just to kick things off?
Well, I think my definition of a boy band is basically, a bunch of young men or boys, depending on how you look at them.
Okay. Keep going.
Being put together in a group, writing a lot of popular songs that a lot of ladies in particular like, and they all have their own personality within the band. That it's not like just the band, like each member and what they're about. And, obviously, like NSYNC, you've got the name, like the name of the band is each of their names, just a letter from each of their names, and they all have a thing. One Direction, they got their own thing. They're all from X Factor. They all have their own accents. Everyone has their favorite and everything. But, like, there are other ones, too, like the Beatles. I know that a lot of people probably immediately are like, "Whoa, what are you saying?" Like,
Yeah,
they
we
did
lost a lot
drugs
of
and
viewers.
stuff.
We just lost
We just lost
3
half the
viewers.
audience, but just
Yeah.
bear with me. At least, listen, you can argue that at the end of their career they weren't. Whatever, I don't care. At the beginning, they were 100% a boy band. They were 4 good-looking guys on stage singing songs about holding hands and stuff, and girls were losing their minds. And each of them had their favorite Beatle. They were all different, even though they looked the same. You know, they had the same haircut and outfit and everything, but they were all different. And even to this day, it's like a hot discussion, like debate, like who's the best Beatle, who's your favorite Beatle. Like, that's a boy band ass thing.
Also, the internet kind of loves to hate the Beatles as well.
Exactly, because they're popular. So
a lot of people are like, dude, the Beatles suck. Like, how could you even like bring them up in a discussion about music?
Exactly. Plus, I'm
That's
sure
another podcast.
Obviously, I wasn't alive back then, but I'm sure when they,
Right.
you know, showed up on the scene with their first couple albums, like a lot of people were like, "This is just annoying pop music. Like, I don't like this. Like, these girls are brainwashed. I don't know what's wrong with them, but like, this isn't music."
Dude, they're ruining doo-wop. How dare you put, you know, how dare you put distorted guitars underneath doo-wop? She loves you, yeah. What? That's not even words. What are you saying?
8 days a week, you guys are on drugs.
And definitely don't let your kids listen to "I Want to Hold Your Hand." Public display of affection. That's almost heathenistic.
Whose hand are they really trying to hold? You be the judge.
Exactly. It's very. I mean, but the funny thing is that really shook the foundations of society at that time.
I know.
Like, oh my God, it's like 5 BPM faster, and he's talking about holding her hand. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
only hold hands in houses.
Just look at Beatlemania.
Can't do that outside. True, Beatlemania. Great example.
Like, those girls were losing their minds, and it's like, what? It's not like, yeah, the music was different, but like we've had different music. They've had different music before that. It's not, people didn't lose their minds like that. Like, these girls were screaming their heads off. They were crying in front of them. Like, they were going insane because of these 4 dudes playing music. Like,
yeah, I actually listened to an interview recently. I think it was Paul McCartney on Howard Stern from last year, and he was saying to Howard, he was like, basically, just in his very fall type of way, was saying that, hey, look, you're either on one side of it or you're not, okay? We don't need to get into that. But he was basically one of the dumbest conspiracies of all time, but it is very entertaining. I'll give you that. But he was basically saying, like, yo, I'm kind of glad they were yelling that loud because we messed up a lot. It was a very Irish accent. I'm not good at accents, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, they were almost happy that the girls were screaming that loud because they were so nervous. They were like basically 4 English kids who lived on the outskirts of Liverpool, and they just came down to the US, and they're just getting screamed at in their faces by hordes of fans on the Ed Sullivan show, and they were just like, what the hell is going on right now? And they obviously messed up a lot, but you couldn't hear it. You really couldn't hear it. Think about this. Girls were passing out in front of their black and white TVs with the little knobs you have to turn just by seeing them on a TV screen. That's insane.
hearing like the crackly audio version of it, not even like good audio. Like,
so I think they set the precedent.
Yeah,
and it kind of makes me ask you this question: whether you think they are a boy band or they're not. I think we sort of shelf the Beatles conversation for a minute and still get to the actual definition of a boy band, because I think it's a many layered beast, like an onion. You just got to keep peeling it back. So I mean, I would assume that you would agree with this, but you would say it's more than just the music, right?
Oh, 100%. Because there are plenty of, like, because they arguably make like the same music as like whatever other pop stars are making music that are just a singer, you know, like the Spice Girls and Christina Aguilera. Like, their music was like obviously different, but like they were on the same radio station, and they probably had a lot of the same fans, but it wasn't the same. Like, the Spice Girls had each individual identity. They had different colors. They had, you know, this Ginger Spice, Sporty Spice, they had their own thing. Like, they were branded as 5 individuals in a group. And that's what like makes up like a boy. I mean, that's a girl group, but it's the same thing. Like, the boy band is just, there are bands which are just like a group of people, but then there's something different about taking 5 like individual personalities and still showcasing them just as a collective of individuals.
Yeah, there's certainly a nuance to having everyone know that John Lennon's really the more out there hippy dippy type guy, and Paul McCartney's kind of the more not conservative because I don't want to label him politically, but conservative in the sense of like personality trait, a little more closer to the belt.
Yeah.
You know,
a bit more reserved.
Yeah, more reserved. And Ringo's just kind of like, oh, peace and love for everyone, you know, like, and they each have their own unique personality, but they come together within the Beatles, which is, you know, and George Harrison was known as like very much so a man of culture. He was obsessed with like, you know, Eastern culture and especially like Indian instruments and using sort of those in his music and in the country of India. So,
exactly. And like, and that's a great example because there were other big bands at the time, like the Rolling Stones had Mick Jagger and Keith Moon, but like, or not, I'm sorry, not Keith Moon, Keith Richards, right? Keith Richards.
Yes, Keith Richards. Yes. Keith Moon was in the Who.
The drummer of the Who, yeah. I just mixed up my Keiths. Anyway, you know, they had those two. It happens. You know, you have those two big personalities in the Rolling Stones, and like the other guys are famous. Obviously, they're in the Rolling Stones, but like I can't tell you like anything about them as people, like, and which isn't like a bad thing.
Between the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, arguably the two biggest bands of the '60s in the pop culture zeitgeist. I mean, people will say, well, there's like a big four with, you know, Pink Floyd, but A, they were later on in the decade, and B, I think they really did well that everyone was so high all the time.
Yeah, and they were more of like,
because you could get stoned and listen to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, but Pink Floyd really was like, you had to be out there in space.
Pink Floyd was the stuff that got you high.
Yeah, exactly. You got high to it, rather. I would say you put that on as you also cracking up. Whoops! Actually, YouTube might bring this down. Thank God I didn't show the logo. Yeah, it's a Diet Coke, not sponsored. But yeah, we're on YouTube, and so with all that being said, I think. So we have the personalities, we have the music, which is always pop. Pop is obviously liquid and it changes, as does the definition of what a boy band is. But I also think if you want to look at the first Beatles appearance, because I also do believe that the Beatles were the first boy band. I don't think in the moment they were a boy band, but I think they sort of set the precedent for what a boy band would be. So I don't think they were considered a boy band because there hadn't been a boy band before that. But music historians
they walked so the rest of them could run.
Yeah, exactly. And music historians do exist. That's like an actual profession. And they kind of also, for the most part, agree that, hey, the Beatles, whether they knew it or not, were one of the first boy bands. And so with that being said, it's like when you see them all on the Ed Sullivan Show wearing their suits with their bowl cuts, very uniform, you can kind of notice that look across a lot of the boy band history. Like if you look in the 90s, like they all were wearing the baggy pants, the Backstreet Boys, all like the frosted tips, like they had the styles of the day. Right. And if you even look at like One Direction and stuff, like towards the end of their career, and you can correct me more so if I'm wrong, it was like streetwear. They were all dressed in like the most trendiest outfits and stuff, but they all look like they fit together. You know, I think that's because you're trying to sell a package, but the brilliant part about it is you're selling a package as the label, as the manager, as the agent. You know, you're marketing a whole, but you're also profiting off of the individual that makes the whole at the same time. That's why there's so many successful solo careers. And the Beatles also could be used as a great trajectory for this because every single one of them had a successful solo career. They all went on to have almost as much number one singles, if not more in some cases, than the Beatles did. Right. Even Ringo, who, you know, he did have the most number one singles out of any solo Beatle. His songs have been forgotten in the sands of time, though. I mean, I don't think there's a staying power there as much as there is with Paul and stuff. That's also a different podcast. But like the fact of the matter is, even the one who I guess has sort of fallen the most in regards to like the impact on the zeitgeist musically, not culturally, Ringo's been awesome for that. Like sort of, you know, raising the flag of like freedom and liberty for the world. But it's just so funny to see how many have followed that path since then. Not as many from the Backstreet Boys in the NSYNC era, but there was some successful solo careers. Some of them just wanted to get out of it, though, because I think with the Beatles, it was very much so they weren't a boy band until history labeled them one after it was long said and done. Right. But as time goes on, you know, it's kind of one of those things where, well, then it sort of became very rigorous, and there was more rules associated with it. There was different things you had to do. Like you almost had to like model it sometimes, and you had to wake up and do all these press tours and all this type of stuff. As American export of like entertainment got bigger, so did the boy band.
Right,
And
you got to do your 20 questions bullshit, like what's your favorite color, when was your first date, what do you look for in a girl, blah blah blah. Yeah.
So that's why I think there's been less solo careers afterwards, because I think it's very rigorous. It's very crazy. I mean, just look at the Jackson 5. You know, only 2 of them went on to pursue music very intensely after the fact, Janet and Michael, because it was just such an intense, arduous thing. I think they're not a boy band, but they are kind of like a part of the group phase that I think set the precedent for like the Hansons and all that type of stuff. You know, like the second wave, I would say. But this is where you're more knowledgeable. So I just think it's very funny to just look at how it has evolved and developed over time. So I think throughout the course of this conversation, we got to keep in mind that it's a very liquid term. So when we go back and cite the past, you build upon what you had. That's just how history works, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, take it away from here. Like what do you think about all that? Is there anything specifically you want to take it in a certain direction from there? Because I could keep going, but I also want to let you speak. I mean, this is your show after all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Finally, the recognition I deserve. Well, I mean, it's boy band. Well, obviously, you know, no one called the Beatles a boy band because that term didn't exist back then. Just like I'm sure. You're
another visual bit.
You audio listeners are really missing out on some gold here. I'm telling you. I don't mean to like put you down or anything. I'm just saying.
No, we appreciate you.
I'm enjoying the visual gags just as much as I'm sure everyone watching on YouTube is.
Thanks, man. Anyways, keep going, please. I know I just unloaded a lot on you. So
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say like the term boy band is such like a yeah, I guess I don't know if there is there's probably a Webster's, you know, definition that's like very technical and whatever, but I feel like it's a very, like you said, it's very liquid. Like it's a very gray term, because I feel like you could kind of argue that the Eagles were almost a boy band because, you know, there was all these wonderful harmonies, super popular music, even though it was technically like Southern rock and roll, but it was popular, which is what pop means, really.
Would you say it's almost kitsch in a sense? You know, do you know what that word means?
No.
It's so I just looked it up because it kind of like struck me in the head. It's like art, objects, or designs considered to be in poor taste because of excessive garnishes or sentimentality, but sometimes appreciated in an ironic or knowing or unknowing way. Like I feel like the Backstreet Boys are like cool now, but in the day they weren't. But now they've almost become, in a sense, kish, you know, because everyone's like, yo, Backstreet's back. Like that shit was actually hard as fuck. Like we were hating back in the day. Like a lot of our male friends now like Bieber. Whereas when he first came out, they were against him. You know what I'm saying?
I'd say mainstream, yeah, it was kitsch. But like the Backstreet Boys were always huge. Like
yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying like, but the way that they're even more universally accepted now.
No, like how Bieber, when Bieber came out, everybody was like, oh, this dude sounds like a girl and he's got a lame haircut, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, yo, Bieber's a king, dude. He's badass, whatever.
Exactly.
Like, whatever, dude. You just like him because he hangs out with rappers now.
And throws parties at his house he doesn't even show up to.
And throws parties, exactly.
That's pretty badass. But
I don't even remember what I was saying right before this Bieber thing.
Well, I just kind of wanted to know, like, because I was talking about sort of like the trickle down and the evolution of the boy band. So I guess I'm curious. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, like just that it's like a gray term, because like you could say that like the Eagles were a boy band because of their harmonies and popular music and stuff, and the fact that like it wasn't just Glenn and Don, you know, like you had the other Don, you had oh my God, you had Timothy B. Schmidt first of all, but Randy, even what's his face? The guy that played the banjo, was that Bernie?
Bernie Ledden?
Bernie, yeah, exactly. Like, chill. I'm not gonna chill. I have no chill. And
so,
you know, so like
the Eagles were a boy band.
They were all well known because like each of them, like everybody loved "Take It to the Limit" because they loved Randy singing that song. Like everybody had their own main song kind of thing, and they all brought songs to the table. Like I feel like that's like that's very boy band. Right. Even though like a commercial pop boy band doesn't write any of their own songs, but like they're all contributing like, you know, their own thing. So it's like, but then obviously on the other side, it's like, well, they're a rock band and like in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all this other stuff and whatever. And, you know, they're not always singing about like, I love you, baby. But I don't know. I would consider them a boy band, but I can definitely understand people being like, there's no way the Eagles are a boy band.
See, I think you can make that argument, although I do disagree only because I think there's another factor in determining what becomes a boy band. Like I said, it's an onion. And I think while the Eagles had a huge cultural impact, I don't think it was anywhere near the way that, as much as I hate to say it, One Direction shook the zeitgeist in their day and age. The Beatles shook the zeitgeist in their day and age. Hanson with MMMBop for like 5 minutes shook the zeitgeist in their day and age. Maybe that's a bad example. The Jonas Brothers, thank you. That's a better example from, I think,
even
late
Busted.
In their respective country, yeah. And I definitely want to get to K-pop a little bit later on in this situation. But I mean, look at how...
Another hot take band that's a boy band, IMO, Blink-182.
Okay, I mean... That, I think, is not the case because I think there's also a musicality that comes with the boy band.
Right. Well, I'm not saying Green Day's a boy band, but I would say Blink-182 was a fucking boy band.
All right. So why? I want to ask you why then before I just, monopolize too much of my opinions here.
So, I mean, again, I'm going to preface this. Well, maybe not again, but I'm going to preface this sub-topic right here, Blink-182, Green Day, whatever, that you, Chris, know way more about all of their music and just their career than I do. So... correct anything that I say if it's wrong right now.
Did I spell
Here
that?
it comes.
I don't even know if I spelled that right.
No, that's right. That's right. And so if I say something that's incorrect about them as musicians or their career or something, please correct me. But from my understanding and observations, like Green Day, obviously they came up like the punk scene and they were just like, punk, F the man, like screw the system, music, bam, 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 bam. I can sing about masturbation, but not because like it's funny, like I'm just talking about it, and you're like, yeah, absolutely.
Because it's nuts. Or
but
it's
then,
lost
like,
its touch.
Exactly. But then like Blink-182 talks about, and they're like, LOL, like I want your mom to give me a blowjob. Like they had like this goofy personality, and like you knew all the guys in Green Day, but like it was really Billy Joe was like the mouth, like aside from being the lead singer, like he like I feel like he did more of the talking, and like you knew more about him than the other two guys. But with Blink-182 was like I feel like all three of them, I would agree with that. But with all three of them, like they each had their own thing. Like obviously they kind of had the two singer thing, but even Travis was like, people were like, yo, Travis is crazy. Like he does all this extreme stuff. He's covered in tattoos. Like he has all this stuff. Like they
clothing
each
brand,
had their own
he
thing.
really carved his own niche with
clothing brand,
famous
like,
and hanging out with rappers and
the whole thing.
Sort of
And
showing his own personal musical taste. Like, yeah, he was a punk guy, started off in a ska band, the Aquabats, but he really loves hip hop and rap.
Right,
and he's
exactly. And he's branched out, and now people like he'll be featured on songs that if you don't know he's a drummer, you'd be like, where is this guy? I don't hear him on the song at all. But like you hear Mark Hoppus and you hear Tom DeLonge, maybe right now is a little weird, but you know what I'm saying. Like he had his thing, he had Angels and Airwaves.
He carved his own personality.
He still carved his own personality, even if it's
aliens exist.
Exactly. Even if it's like a weird personality, like they all have their own thing. And even I feel like Mark Hoppus is almost more famous than Blink-182 in some regard, like to some people, like
at this
because
point
of like Twitter and stuff, like he's a personality. And like Billy Joe is definitely a personality. And like Trey Cool, obviously, like that's not his real name. Like on stage they have personalities, but I feel like off stage, like the only thing I know about Mike is that he has a coffee brand.
I didn't even know that. So I think that's a good point in case. Although I do think I can see your points, but here's why I still disagree. Okay. It's because the music, I think, also has to hit a certain way. Blink-182 had their fair share of mainstream hits, but so did Good Charlotte, if you want to go down that path. So did Simple Plan, Blink-182 probably had those songs become number one. Not saying Good Charlotte didn't have a few number ones, but I'm sure Blink to Good Charlotte's number ones, definitely going to outlay it.
Blink was definitely the biggest of all those bands you just mentioned.
And Green Day, of course, had their number one hits. But I just think that if you eventually end up residing on alternative radio after your run, but you're not played in those like throwback pop stations that will give you a mixture of like The Fray and like Janet Jackson and like Madonna, you know what I mean? If you're not still in those kind of like legacy pop stations, but you're only in the alt rock stations, after it's said and done, I just don't think you had your moment and it was huge. and you're still played in a legacy station, I just don't think you are. Because that's where like the Backstreet Boys are still like their slow jams are still in those stations. NSYNC slow jams are still in those stations.
But I feel like all the small things, and I feel like all the small things and I Miss You are still played on those stations too. Because like all the small things is like massive. Like Damn It was a big song, but all the small things was like during the credits of Charlie's Angels.
All I'm saying is I've never heard while I'm waiting for my dental checkup or my my doctor's checkup. I've never heard the Fray go into Blink-182. I've heard them go into like a Hanson or a Madonna. So I think that's where we disagree.
Okay.
But I do
you
think
didn't change my mind. You didn't change my mind, but I do agree with what you said and definitely see where you're coming from.
Damn. So I guess I'm not like Steven Crowder, which I guess is a good thing. Anyways, moving on.
Not change my mind. Well, here's something I was talking with one of my roommates about this earlier today, which is what led me to ask you about it. And he was saying, like, on top of this, like, if they just say they're a boy band, is that enough? Because Brockhampton says that they're not a band and they're not a rap group, that they're a boy band. So, like, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, it was.
Visual bit.
You're right.
YouTube.com.
Good guess.
So yeah, I think there's a difference between a boy band and a group, though.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But like, I just think it's funny that Brockhampton, like traditionally like hip hop, like definitely kind of like alternative pop, but like a lot of hip hop is their main thing. Like that they're like, we're a boy band. Like you would think that they would rather be considered a rap group, but they're like, no, boy band. And then like when you look at it, it makes sense. Wait a minute.
They claim to be a boy band?
Yes. According to Scott.
By my definition, and by the little research that I did going into this episode on Brockhampton, I have to disagree, because I think one of the key principles of a boy band is knowing each member on such a personal level that when they come together, they don't just complement the whole, they are a part of the whole. It's not just like how we don't really know who Mike Dirnt is, but we know who Green Day is and we know who Billy Joe is as a person.
Right.
We don't think of, when I think of Green Day, my first thought isn't, oh yeah, it's Mike Dirnt, it's Trey Cool, it's Billy Joe. I'm just like, oh yeah, Green Day, the punk rock band. Like the members don't pop out of the whole to me at like a face value first glance. And so I know Brockhampton has like a crazy amount of members that just come and go, it seems. So that's why I think they're marketed like one. I think that they dress like one.
Although
they operate as one, but I don't think they are one.
I'm going to counter that more so just for argument's sake, because I don't really know a lot about either of the groups I'm about to talk about, Brockhampton being one of them. Menudo was a huge boy band where Ricky Martin started, and that group was always called Menudo, but they were cycling members out all the time.
Okay, I'm listening.
And I don't exactly know the details of that, whether it was like once you reach a certain age or just like whenever you want to leave or how that worked, but it was always called Menudo. But like Ricky Martin was obviously not always in Menudo, and like so I know that like I'm curious like how well all the Menudo fans knew each member, and like if there were fans that were like once Ricky Martin left or something, they were like, I'm done with Menudo, my favorite member's gone, or if they were just like Menudo.
I can't speak to this because I have just heard the word Menudo now for the first time. Like I just struggled saying it for the first time ever in my life. So I'm not familiar with that, and I'm not gonna, make anything up about it. So sorry, Disney. Sorry, everyone.
I don't think it was Disney, but
I don't know. I'm just saying, that is. But with that being said, I think so. Let's we spoke about the Beatles and how I guess like they maybe helped establish some of the rules post-mortem. But what would the second wave be? Who was the next boy band after the Beatles? Because at this point, I think there had to be a meeting of the minds, some sort of fabrication.
Right. I mean, I feel like
success, right?
There had to have been there had to have been something like ABBA that wasn't guys and girls, because I feel like
that's a group.
That's
marketed
a group,
very
exactly.
similarly, but it's a mixture of, like you said.
Right. I don't know any of their names, but I know all their hits.
And that's also another thing that wouldn't make them a boy band in my definition, is that the members don't amplify the sum. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think that's key.
Which I know this is slight. I mean, it's all in the topic, but slightly off topic of this, who's the next boy band? Like, I wouldn't say, like, you would think that after all this that I would consider a band like the 1975 a boy band, but like I don't, because even though they all kind of, I mean, they all have like a similar look, I guess, but it's like it's really all about Matty Healy. Like, he's
Before we go any
the major
forward, though,
personality, even though the drummer like is also a co-writer, and like I'm sure the other two guys co-write, but it's like I don't know anything about what the guitarist or bass player like, and I barely know anything about the drummer, but like I know so much, I know too much about Matty Healy, you know?
Yeah, before we go any forward, since we're about halfway through the show, I want to take a moment to tell you guys about Anchor. No, I'm just kidding. But I do want to establish
We're going to talk about Raid Shadow Legends.
I want to establish the rules real quick. So do we agree that the members have to amplify the sum?
Yes, in the sense that if the boy band breaks up, that each member also still has their own following and fans and stuff like that. Like, I mean, obviously, like, bands break up, and if you really like the band, you're going to care about what the members do. But, like, even besides the band, like even though, like, Louis has barely put out any music, like, Louis still has a massive following from One Direction because he was in One Direction. And because even while he was in One Direction, people were like, what's Louis up to? I care about Louis.
It's not like, for example, if, like, I don't know if this happened, I'm just going to use something that I think would be a logical way to explain it. If Limp Bizkit, shout out to Limp Bizkit, I've been jamming them a little bit lately. They're hard as fuck. If they broke up, I don't know if like the drummer could ride on the heels and replicate the same success.
Exactly.
Of, like, I don't think you can market it like, oh shit, the drummer of Limp Bizkit's new band. Like, who's really gonna care?
And on the other side of that, if let's say Limp Bizkit got back together and it was Fred Durst and all the other guys were different, I don't think a lot of people would really care, and you wouldn't really tell the difference. But like if One Direction was like, we're getting back together, and it was like Harry and Zayn, and then Harry, Zayn, Chris is killing it with these little visual gags, I'm telling you.
In joke. That's for like 4 people, including a former guest of the show, Tyler Wilson.
We've got, you know, like even if it was Harry and Zayn and then like 3 other guys that were like just as good at singing as the other 3 guys, like their fans would lose their minds. They'd be so pissed off. Even though those are the 2 most popular members, that's still not One Direction because it's not the other guys.
And
like,
if you want to even further define the difference between a boy band and a group, like for example, Wu-Tang Clan, they all have a similar look. They all have their own unique personalities within the group.
They're all their own musician.
The individual adds to the sum total. They make the unit stronger, and they all had successful careers afterwards. But they weren't a boy band. They just didn't strike the zeitgeist in the way that the Beatles did on that mainstream level, because I think a big part of being a boy band is the way that they, like you said at the very top of this, the way that they get like the female fan base on board, because obviously boys are marketed to girls. You know what I'm saying?
And like, I don't know a lot about Wu-Tang Clan's music. Like, I'm going to admit that it wasn't huge in my, you know, friend group and family and everything like that, so I don't know a lot about it. I know that they obviously are massive and that they definitely changed hip hop and all that stuff, and everyone in it is talented extremely in their own right. And it's just like you said, it's just like, even though they definitely had their mark in culture and society, like it's not like they weren't huge and they didn't make an impact or they don't have fans or they're not still majorly popular and all that stuff. But it's like you said, it's like they didn't like, people weren't like, they didn't just like brainwash all these people, just be like, oh my God, the Wu-Tang Clan, oh my God, I just want to touch your elbow, please. Like all this crazy stuff.
Yeah,
and
they were huge, culturally important.
And honestly, I feel like it was like, I don't know if there was an air of mystery about them on purpose, but I feel like I always heard of the Wu-Tang Clan and I heard songs and I heard names of the people in the group, but I like didn't know what any of them looked like. I didn't know what they did outside of it besides rap. And it was just like this mystery, which is also, I don't know if you were about to say this, but I feel like that's another way to market that kind of thing, to be like this massive thing that you keep hearing about, but like the only picture I see is that freaking W. And I'm like, that's a cool W, but that's the only image I've seen of it. And it's this massive thing that everyone's talking about. And I'm like, what is it?
So like, I remember when I was a very little kid, Burger King did something with NSYNC. And I got like these little NSYNC toys. And, you know, Wu-Tang Clan wasn't cutting deals with Burger King.
They're around the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, was it the Backstreet Boys?
And they were all like weird superheroes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those were awesome.
And so that was like they're taking these guys' faces and they're branding them in every aspect of their lives. Like both of them, I believe, had deals with Pepsi and Coca-Cola. They were in commercials.
One
like,
Direction
you know what I'm
has
saying?
toothpaste and toothbrushes.
Exactly.
I've never
like
seen Wu-Tang
It's like
Clan
some Kiss type
toothpaste.
shit. And I think you could argue that Kiss maybe was, again, not a boy band of the time. I don't think because of the music, but I think you can like study if you're an executive. Like I'm putting my like I'm a label owner hat, and I found these 4 people on YouTube that I think if they come together, we can make them huge. How am I going to do that? Through merchandising, which is what I think groups like ABBA, Wu-Tang Clan, Limp Bizkit, right? Like a few of these people that we've brought up who are like, well, Limp Bizkit's a band, so that's a bad example. We'll cut that one out. We'll have our editor cut that one out. But like ABBA, yeah, ABBA, and who was the other one I just said?
Wu-Tang Clan.
Wu-Tang Clan, right? Huge, obviously had big hits, but the thing is, you weren't like having their faces being shown in your face nonstop 24/7 like you were with the Beatles, like you were.
I don't think a lot of kids were walking around with the Wu-Tang Clan lunchbox. Lots of Wu-Tang Clan t-shirts for sure.
Right.
But nobody
100%.
was like, dude, check out this watch that I have with Method Man's face on it. Like
it goes a step further. It goes like deeper than that with the boy bands.
Exactly.
And also, you know, Wu-Tang Clan was a little more R-rated, so it was harder to market them. Boy bands are so squeaky clean. Like even the Beatles, for all that they were saying, like holding your hand in public, how dare you sing this?
The most you could do was what like NSYNC and like Boys to Men more so were doing, where it's like you sing about having sex, but you're not doing it like rappers do. We're like, I'm gonna turn you around and bend you over. Like they're like, I'm gonna like hold you and caress you and love you, and it's gonna be tender. And you're like, ooh, this is a little steamy, but at the same time, really at the end of the day, they're just promoting love, and like that's the important thing. So it's like my dad was buying my sister NSYNC albums as a kid. I'm like, whatever, NSYNC. I listen to them now, and like Digital Get Down is literally about like getting on a webcam and getting on the phone and like having phone sex on webcam. And my dad probably had no idea and was just letting my sister listen to it when she was like 13. And I'm sure he wouldn't have been stoked about it.
There's like a level of like it's like almost like, you know, it's
selling sex, but
yeah, it's not exactly
like that episode of South Park with Mickey Mouse and the Jonas Brothers where he's like, put those purity rings on because we're selling sex.
It does go back to like, I think rock and roll, like AC/DC. What's you know, you shook me all night long about. She was a fast machine. She kept my motors clean. Like those are all euphemisms. But they did it in a way that wasn't cherry like pie, out there. And yeah, exactly. Warrant's cherry pie, great example. It's just kind of like those types of things. Like they just kept pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope. And so as far as the music pushing the envelope, I don't think that's something boy bands really do. I think they always play it safe. They have the same production. Like they have all they have all the hot sounds. They sound very expensive, as people in the industry like to say, you know? Like One Direction has the same production like that any rapper, when they did their rock songs, any big rock band of the time would have. But I don't really know if they were, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm okay with being wrong. I think that's important, everyone. But I don't think that they were kind of like out there, sort of like, you know, being as euphemistic, I don't know if that's the right tense to use that word, as maybe Florida Georgia Line was with some of their songs, you know, both huge pop groups, but like one was a little more squeaky clean, and I think bigger for that reason.
I think it's interesting thinking about it. I mean, definitely with One Direction, and I would say probably with like Big Time Rush also. And I don't have a lot of vivid memories right now of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys' first albums that like were the first
we were
big
like
ones.
4, so.
But I'm like definitely with One Direction, like I said, like they start with the innocent songs, you know, like What Makes You Beautiful, where it's like when you look down at the ground and smile, like I know that you're beautiful and that's what makes you beautiful. So it's like the first album you're singing about a girl who's super shy, and like her being shy and cute is what we were.
Keep going, please.
They were like shy, and that's what makes her cute. But then like you get to the second album, and then you're like, oh, now like you're staying up all night. Now it's like now there's like some tension. Like now there's like this girl is being treated badly by her current boyfriend, and now you want to be her good boyfriend, and like all this other stuff. So now you're talking about like abusive relationships, which is kind of crazy. Then you get to the third album. And
so
then
there's subject matter, right? Subject matter is kind of what we're getting.
But I'm saying like it ramps up, because then in the third album, like they're literally being like without saying the words, like I'm having sex with this girl, like they're saying they're at a party and they're having a good time, and then they go and be alone. Like you know that that's what they're talking about. So it's like they never try to get new fans of the same age. They're always just like, we've got our fans are growing up with us, so they always just like, they elevate it. Because like I'm sure the last album of One Direction's Made in the AM is like they're talking about like grown-up relationship problems, like being faithful and, you know, like wanting to be there at the end of the day, and girls like the song.
So that's
Perfect,
another thing.
The song
that
Perfect is literally about girls that go to tours and hang out in hotel rooms after the show and all this stuff. And we've all met girls like this. And like, when you kind of like take the substance of that song, it's about like a girl who's trying to like hang out with band guys and hang out in their hotel rooms and stuff like that. But then you know, it's like more than that. It's being like, well, then like we should all hang out because you're trying to have fun. And it's like, you wouldn't have been able to get away with that on the first album. Like these 12-year-old girls would be like, hotel rooms? What are you talking about? We're all like 14.
So that's why I want to throw it back to the Beatles yet again, and that's why I'm kind of glad that you sort of said that to me pre-show, because I think it's a really good talking point. If you look at the way the Beatles evolved, grew, and changed, that's why I don't think that they were a boy band, but I think that they set the foundation for the boy band, because John Lennon eventually ends up to go on and say that he's bigger than Jesus Christ, and right. You know, they
which
all
is one of the most insane things that anyone can really say, whether it's true or not.
And so like that is crazy, but we've seen that kind of like behavior be replicated by some people who have left boy bands and go on to like have their own solo adventures, because I believe from the documentaries I've seen, he was over being a part of the sum and he wanted to be more of an individual. So it's the way that I think the people sort of craft you as well. The fan reception sort of makes you want to like claw to get out. So you find your own creativity in the aftermath of it all. So that's why I think the Beatles are like the token first boy band, but I would say the prototype, really, because of the fact that they kind of didn't know what was happening to them while it was happening. But if you study boy bands and you look at the trajectories and the history of it afterwards, there's like, you know, JT had a few like crazy things happen afterwards, you know what I mean? And he recovered and now he's good. And like, you know, John Lennon recovered after he said that and he was good until unfortunately fate found him in a very awful way. But like, you know what I'm trying to say? Right. So I think it's like the mental thing, the mental strain that kind of gets put on the individuals to just be ripped at and teared at and clawed at nonstop every day, all day. Not saying Limp Bizkit, Green Day, Blink-182, ABBA don't have fans like that, but I think it's far greater when you're in a boy band. You know what I mean? I think that's a part of it too. The fandom also helps define what a boy band is what I'm trying to say.
Right, because like even like to talk about too, like more modern bands, like even like, yes, 1975 fans are passionate for sure, and they love the 1975, and I'm sure they love all the members, and they love Matty Healy. But I would argue that 5 Seconds of Summer fans are the ones that are trying to claw through a chain link fence just to like rip off the sleeve of like the shirt that Callum Hood wore the night before, you know, just to hold on to that sleeve. Like I don't know what it is. I'm sure. Exactly. I'm sure it's part of the marketing. like I'm sure that like insane example, like, he's not a boy band. I was going to give a Justin Bieber example, but Bieber is like one of the only people I feel like that had the boy band fans.
I think you can,
with the boy.
Exactly.
Like they had a thing. Like they had that thing. We should do a whole other
episode on like pop icons like Elvis, Michael Jackson, Bieber, Madonna. You know.
Right. Yeah, we could do that.
Because I think that they're very similar, so that can almost be like a part 2 to this. But I think he's a good example. So please keep going. I just kind of wanted to.
There was a thing
a little bit.
Right, there was a thing when it came out, like the very first time that it ever came out, that like Bieber was smoking weed or that he had smoked weed. Like his fans were so upset. Like they were so upset that there was a trending hashtag that was cut for Bieber. That was literally girls cutting themselves, like to be like, please stop smoking weed. And it's like, how is that? Like that's insane. And like you didn't see that happening with like 1975 kind of bands, like. Because they're just a band. And like, I mean, granted, I guess you could argue that was like Bieber being like a kid that's singing to young girls, and then like the 1975 are a band that's always talking about getting high and drinking wine and stuff. So that might be a bad example, but you know what I'm trying to get at, where it's like these girls are like, it's like the fandom feels like they're a part of it. Like they know this artist, as opposed to just like, I like the stuff you make. It's like, I like you, you know, which like, I'm sure that you like Billy Joe, more like, it's more than you just like Green Day. Like, I'm sure you also like Billy Joe, but
Yeah.
you're not like trying to live your life based on what Billy Joe thinks you should live your life on. Like, you live your
No.
life and you enjoy Billy Joe
I'm
and
able
everything he
to
does.
separate the art from the artist in
Exactly.
that specific situation.
And I think a lot of these fandoms can't do that. And it's just like, this is who they are. I love them. Like when the Jonas Brothers had the purity rings, I'm sure that like when they started when Joe Jonas came out with his songs and he was all like sexy and steamy and stuff, I'm sure there were a lot of girls that were like, oh my God, who is this? Joe has changed. And it's like, no,
Right.
you just only saw the Jonas Brothers stuff that was on Disney Channel. Like,
Right.
there's
And
more
I
to him
think-
than that.
I think it's because the emotional attachment from the fandom is so intense.
Right.
You're
And
welcome,
then
algorithm.
And then you also, I think that that's also a good example of like why you don't see them do anything outrageous until they leave. Like
Right.
like Zayn Malik was in One Direction, he leaves, and then he starts singing songs about having sex, and then like talking to the girl the next day, and it's like all these people are like, oh my God, he's just trying to be edgy and like all this stuff, and it's like, no, that's who he's always been. He just had a boy band filter on, like placed on his life that he couldn't take off.
And so here's why I would say,
And the
that
same thing with
Beatles-
Justin Timberlake.
yes, I agree with all of that. And here's why I would say that the Beatles aren't a boy band, but I think are the stepping stone.
Before you say that, real quick, I just want to say, because before you also said that like they weren't necessarily a boy band, but if you look back, they're like the boy band history. It's kind of like what they were doing wasn't boy band things until all the boy bands looked back and did what they did and made it the boy band stuff. Like it was like the Beatles just did their thing, and then everybody started doing that, and everyone called what these other guys were doing boy bands, and then it was like, because they were doing what the Beatles were doing now, like, well, because they're doing it now what the Beatles did then, now what the Beatles did then is kind of now considered boy band stuff, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree. So I think we need to
Exactly.
answer the
question
from the fans. So the fans are asking, so Andrew and Chris, are the Beatles a boy band or not? Here's what I have to say. Here's why I say that they are a great example of one, but the reason they aren't one is because if you look at it, and we can take this all the way up to K-pop, the Beatles started, and their ages ranged, as says Google. I did already know this, but I did pull that up as well. So I just typed this into Google. How old were the Beatles when they started? If you want to follow along at home, 20 to 23. There's a big difference there. You're a little more developed in your brain, whereas let's look at NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, substantially younger when they first started. If you want to even go up to K-pop now, they're grooming these kids from, I don't know, what did that like little documentary on Netflix say? Like 8 or 9 in some cases, 11,
yeah.
12. Like, and it's not like it's a bad thing. They're gonna, they love dancing. They love.
I'm sure.
art.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure
a
they're
bad
not
thing.
like
I'm just saying,
forced into it or anything. But
yeah, I'm just saying, like, big difference.
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah,
you can handle it a little better, I think, at
Right.
an older age. But even look at John Lennon's Freak Out. So I think there's like an emotional weight that
But
the members carry
I'd like
from
to ask
being
you
so
this.
young and so exposed. Yeah, go ahead.
If there was a band similar to the Beatles before the Beatles, do you think that the Beatles would have been put together and marketed like in a way that was like that, if that makes sense?
I mean, there
like,
were groups though in the 50s.
I mean, like if they had known that like obviously when Simon Cowell put One Direction together, he knew they were going to be popular. Like that's why he put them together. He's like, look at these kids; they're all cute. They can all sing well enough. I can get them to be better singers. They're going to be huge.
And
like
so that's
if
why I
someone
also
was there, I'm saying if someone was there with the Beatles, like maybe a couple years before, like when they were like 18 or something. If someone was there being like, I can make you guys huge, like, do you think it would have been the same? If in that sense, like if they had started younger with some guidance or something. I'm not exactly sure what I'm asking, but
I mean, the Beatles did have a really great manager at first that sort of saw something in them, but I think it would always be different because they chose to work together. They had a drummer at first who wasn't Ringo, and they got rid of him.
That's a big.
Whereas,
that's
like
a big
the
point.
Backstreet Boys, they chose to work with Simon Cowell or whoever, One Direction, right? But I don't know if they necessarily chose to work with the other people. I think it was like, well, once you sign up for this, you're working with them regardless. Sort of like a big time Rush situation,
Right.
Sort of like how the Jonas
Well, all
Brothers
those
are a
boy
little
bands were all
different
put
in that
together.
regard because they're naturally brothers, but I think that's a big part of it too, being pieced together and not being pieced together. There's sort of
well, you could argue with the Jonas Brothers that Disney found this trio brother band that wanted to be a punk band and they were like, well, you guys could, write punk feeling songs, but we're going to market you as a pop band anyway. So they were kind of like made into a pop band, you could say.
And they're another, I think that they're a little more of a group, and that could be a whole nother episode just specifically about them. I'd actually really like to get into it, because Nick Jonas actually, from I think the ages of 10 to 12, was on Broadway performing at a high level, selling plays, writing scripts. So
listen, I would love to have a Jonas Brothers episode.
Yeah, so I think we'll have to do that at some point, as well as maybe a Beatles episode. So, but that's why I think the Jonas Brothers were marketed like a boy band, like, for example, like ABBA was a huge group, but they didn't quite, I think, get under the skin of the fan base. Not the Jonas Brothers; they had boy band like fans, but that's I like ABBA. Like, I don't think had the fans who want to like bring home a piece of cloth. I mean, I guess every big artist has a fan who wants to bring home a piece of cloth, but you know what I'm saying? I think there's far less of those for ABBA than there are for like
every huge act has fanatics, but it's like there's a difference between having some fanatics and then having most of your fan base be fanatics.
Because I'll be honest, this is an off-the-cusp conversation. I don't have facts in front of me. I didn't really dig too deep into the history. You'd have to look at the way the societal shift and has changed, and like the impact of social media also, I think, plays into it, and that could make this a way longer podcast than I think it should be right now, because I think we'll revisit this, I hope, and sort of come at it with more information. But so that's kind of why I feel that some of these groups kind of flirt with the same ideologies, but aren't quite falling under the same definition, if that makes sense. I hope I'm not listening to too many political podcasts. Everyone's like, what is this dude going to run for office in 4 years? But you know what I'm trying to say.
I do know what you're trying to say. I think that's, I mean, listen,
the last thing though that I kind of wanted to, thank you. I'm glad you agree, because it just makes it more fun for me. It's a better feeling personally. But with that all being said, the last thing I kind of wanted to bring up was like, the Beatles were very influential in the sense that they made movies to help sell their albums and help sell their records. And the Beach Boys also followed suit. I would say a more American style boy band, and I wouldn't really call them a boy band, but I mean, One Direction had their documentary movie, but that was it. But like the Beatles did like actual movies and stuff. They did like actual movies like Hard Day's Night, Yellow Submarine, to name a few. The Beach Boys also had a few movies as well. So I think it's, but for the Beatles and the Beach Boys sonically not being too different from like the Monkees, or too different from, I don't want to say the Rolling Stones, but I think fans crossed over in that regard. The Rolling Stones weren't making
they had
movies
similar
to sell their
demographics,
records, and they weren't like having stylists dress them on a beach like the Beach Boys, for example, and they weren't like shooting fake volleyball games, and like the music videos weren't really music videos. It was like people went on to later make music videos out of like their movies and stuff, but like you could do that with them because there was visual content, you know what I mean? Whereas like the Rolling Stones, it would just be like live footage and clips.
Exactly.
It's stills images of that, because it was just like there was just like a weird sort of, and I think that's why we can get into casting directors too at one point in time. The way you act isn't necessarily always what they want for the role. They might just want like in like, for example, let's go with like Legally Blonde or Pitch Perfect or any of those kind of movies. Like acting is almost just as important as the look, how you look for the part, and
or even in like
look on screen. If
you need to cast like a main character's brother, like you could have some guy who's the funniest guy on earth, but if he looks nothing like the character you're trying to cast as his brother, then like you can't give it to that guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Drake and Josh works, because they're stepbrothers.
Exactly. That was smart.
Yeah, very smart. But I mean, so it all, I think it's all, there's so many factors, but.
Right. I think we're starting to, get to the point where we should begin wrapping it up a little bit. And I'd like to ask a question that I think is an important question for you to answer, given everything we've spoken about. Wow, I can't with words today. It's a very important question. I'm sure you've been asked this a lot of times, but I want the people to know the answer. Who is your favorite Beatle and why?
Zane,
really quick, I just want to specify, this question is not who is the best Beatle. This is who is your favorite Beatle, and then you can say why.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Who was my favorite Beatle? You're going to want me to say Paul. I think he's the best Beatle. I'm going to go with George because George had integrity. He had forgiveness. I think he was a stand-up person. Eric Clapton very openly poached his ex-wife, and instead of hating Eric Clapton and taking that to his grave, he forgave him, and they went on to make music together. George opened the door for Phil Collins as a drummer, not just a singer. He opened the door for Jeff Beck, the amazing guitar player. He was so generous. Like, when they asked the Beatles, hey, can you play Woodstock? They had already broken up. It was Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison who were like, well, there's this guy called Jimi Hendrix. He's pretty good if you need like a headliner. Like, he was just so much a good guy, you know? And he obviously is incredibly talented. I love so many of his songs, like While My Guitar Gently Weeps and something in the way. I can't sing anymore because of copyright strikes. But I mean, yeah. So I think Paul is the best Beatle as far as my musical sensibilities go. But I think if we're going to talk about like just a good dude, George Harrison is my favorite.
Nice. That's a good answer.
Andrew, I have a question for you though.
Okay, Paul.
Fall.
You're right. What's his name? Billy Snipes. Billy something
like that. Yeah. I wonder
Whatever.
if like they all hang out at like Billy Joel's house and like, you know.
And they just laugh about it. Like, can you believe this is still going on?
Yeah, like and Howard Stern, his neighbor, comes over and they're like, dude, I interviewed the real Paul McCartney. You're like 10 times better, man. Like, I wonder if they're like, he was such a jerk, man. Like,
God. They're like, dude, that guy was not funny. You are hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, he was 10 times better at music than you, but that doesn't matter. But Andrew,
You're still pretty good. Yes.
Andrew, and I guess the audience, let us know in the comments below. Who is your favorite member of 1D?
1D. One Direction. Let's see. Well, similar to the way you're answering your question, I'm going to say the best member is obviously Harry Styles because, you know, I mean, when the band started, I would argue that Zayn was the better singer, but Harry is an incredible singer and an incredible songwriter. And I really haven't listened to his first album, but the Fine Line, that is a hit. That album is amazing. But my favorite member of One Direction has always been and will always be Niall Horan because
his slow hands.
His slow hands, exactly. His slow hands. Can't sing anymore.
That song's a banger.
It's a good one, dude. And even his "Nice to Meet You," dude. That song's amazing.
That's a good one too.
And I do love his voice. But even on top of that, similarly to why you love George, like he's just a nice guy. He dyed his hair blonde for the band. You know, like I respect that. It's probably why I started dyeing my hair blonde, but it's too late to go back now. You know, I've got he's just always there to have a good time. His laugh is amazing. It literally gives you life. He just wants everyone to have a good time. He's always nice. He's sweet. You know, like sure, maybe stop. Sure, maybe you're too good with these visual things, dude. You're derailing my thoughts every time. Oh my gosh. Okay. But the only fault I could give him is just that he like had some drama with Ed Sheeran and Ellie Goulding or something, maybe. Or I don't know, Taylor Swift. I don't know. Either way, besides that, he's my favorite. He's the funniest one. He's the best one. Niall all the way.
Niall.
Also, I know you didn't ask, but Liam is my least favorite member. But I think that that's kind of the consensus of the community. Yeah,
I can see that. Niall All the Way is my favorite song from Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. They did a live 15-minute jam of it at Mountain Jam. Anyways, with that being said,
yikes!
That zinger and a half. It was such a good episode until then. I just couldn't help myself, could I? Andrew, this was awesome.
Our editor can edit that out.
Yeah. Left Twix, as we like to call him.
Left Twix. I mean, he's gonna love that.
Yeah, I think he is, because we all know the left flavor was better than the right.
Well, I'm right-handed, but I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, come on, everyone knows that. It's a formula, man. And we kind of changed the formula up on this one, but I gotta say, I enjoyed it.
I liked it too.
Can we now say in our very illustrious and self-proclaimed Twitter and Instagram bios that we're now music historians? Have we taken that leap?
I would say music historians with a minor specialty in boy bands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's
both
like
past and present.
Yeah. That's like, I think they would call that a focus.
Yes, a focus.
So, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, hey, man, we've congratulations. We've taken steps into academia today on our
dad is gonna be so proud.
He's gonna be thrilled. And with that being said, if you guys liked today's show, if you didn't like today's show, well,
sorry,
we're still gonna do it. But what we want you to do is comment below with your. I probably should have had this pre-typed. THOUGHTS thoughts.
Sorry, it's more authentic.
Comment below with your thoughts, because we are trying new things, and we are trying to be better at trying to do this show as well. And that's all going to come with your help.
And we're men of the people, so if you don't like something we're doing, or you like something we're doing, then tell us and we'll stop doing it or do it more, depending on whichever it was.
Yeah, but I got to say, I really enjoyed this kind of episode. I thought it was very just refreshing. It was cool. I didn't know how it was going to go, but I'm glad that it came and it went, because I have stuff to go and do, but also it flew by and I could have went longer. You know, sometimes
I have a couple more thoughts, but
we'll save those. We'll shelf those for another date. But with that being said, if you guys want more from us, well, there's about 43 or 44 more episodes that you can go and check out. Andrew, why don't you tell the people?
43.
Yeah, why don't you go tell the people where they can find our show?
Well, if you're trying to listen to our show, you can listen to it pretty much anywhere that podcasts are cast. You know, we are on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Radio Public, we're on all that good stuff. We're on all the social medias at Talkin' Podcast. No G, or, you know, we don't need it.
No G.
No G. Chris has another podcast with his buddy Dom, the movie nerd, called Talkin' TV, that is also on all those DSPs, digital streaming platforms. So check those out while you're at it. And while you're on all those DSPs, checking out both of those podcasts, subscribe, like, leave us a rating, preferably 5 stars. But I also want to know your honest feedback so we can continue to improve the show. Let us know what you want us to talk about. If there's someone you want us to talk to, we still would love to talk to people as well. So let us know. We want to hear from you, is the bottom line.
Yeah, and Andrew, I think we have a YouTube as well. You kind of do a lot of work on that, don't you?
Whoa, hold on. That is where we are, isn't it? Yeah. Subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. We're going to be doing more stuff with that. You know, it's been a slow start, but
if you're on the audio platform,
times like these,
the description will have the YouTube link going forward, tailored right in there. If you are on YouTube, subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications, because I think we kind of found a way. Icon. Yeah, I think we found a way. As much as I love having guests on and talking with them and interviewing them, I think we kind of found a way today to do this a little more consistently, which is kind of what I always wanted to have happen.
And we would kind of like to steer away from just like a strict interview type thing, which like we can do and we enjoy doing, but we'd like to have more of a discussion and just like talk, like the show implies, instead of, it feels like it's more of like an ask-in with Andrew and Chris, and we're getting more into the talking, you know? So
yeah,
let us know.
The skinny of it is, we want you guys to know us a little better, and we want to know you guys a little better. And that's really where this all stems from. So yeah, I think that about covers it. We are
also follow our personals on
Instagram, Twitter. It's all the same.
To stay up to date with all that stuff, because we're always posting about it and the things that we do privately and together. Yeah,
exactly. And with that being said, keep an eye out for Andrew's upcoming podcast all about anime Frenzy. It's proudly going to be a part of the Talkin' Podcast Network, and we can't wait for you guys to hear it. with that being said, this was an absolute blast. Andrew, thank you for a great topic. Everyone who has listened over this quarantine, who has listened from the start of the show, we appreciate you being here. Again, even if you still want to listen on audio, that is fine, but we do implore you to go and follow us on YouTube, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss a post, because
you never miss a visual gag like the 80 that Chris did this episode.
Yeah, visual gags are a new thing, and also YouTube is by far the easiest way to grow your small business, your passion project, into something that can sustain itself. And guys, if this thing turns into what I think Andrew and I have always been searching for, which is some sort of artistic sustainability, we'll do so much of this that you won't know what to do with it. So
yes, if we get so much support on this that this could be our main squeeze, just in every aspect, then you have no idea the amount of content that will be flying at your faces on the regular. Yeah, we've got ideas.
So with that being said, enjoy your day, guys, and as always, stay sweet.